And we are live.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the September 25th, 2024 Hybrid Planning Commission meeting. I'm Mike Murphy, Vice Chair. Tonight's Hybrid Planning Commission meeting is brought to you by Zoom. Welcome to all and thank you for joining us tonight. Commissioners, please have your mics turned on for the roll call. Deb, please call the roll.
Welcome. Okay, so Vice Chair Mike Murphy,
Present.
Commissioner Kate Accuse,
Present.
Commissioner Adam Riga,
Here.
Commissioner Victor Rashis,
Here.
and we have confirmation that Chair Angela Battazzo is absent due to illness.
Okay. Our first item of business is public appearances. This is the opportunity for anyone to speak to the commission about issues of concern, except those items scheduled for a public hearing later this evening. Is there anyone who has signed up for appearances that wishes to address the commission?
Vice Chair, we did not have anyone that signed up to speak under appearances.
Okay. Moving on, the first item of regular business is to review and consider approving the minutes of the June 12 special meeting. Commissioners, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I have one sort of humorous comment in the minutes. At the end, it refers to Chair Battazzo thanked Vice Chair Murph for his work in leading the process as the former chair. And I'm happy to leave that because I've been known by that for a while, or we can correct it.
The funny thing is that my stepmother, whose last name is Murphy, goes by Murph.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
not
that's how you
unusual.
ended up being Murph.
So we can leave it as is, but I thought I would point that out because it was somewhat humorous.
I have changed that for you. Thank you.
Okay. So let's call the roll on the minutes unless there are no other substantive comments. Seeing none.
Okay. My Vice Chair Murphy,
Aye.
Commissioner Rashis,
Abstain.
Commissioner Accuse,
Aye.
and Commissioner Riga.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The second and final item of regular business is Planning Commission Agenda Bill PCB 2417. Public hearing recommendation on open space zone code amendment. This is a little bit of deja vu all over again because we've plowed this ground, although without a public hearing. In this case, the public hearing is to receive comments on proposed amendments to the Mercer Island City Code to create a new section under Chapter 1905 and to amend 19.01.040 zone establishment, 19.16.010 definitions, and Title 19 Appendix D zoning map. The proposed amendments would add a new open space zone and the associated development regulations and definitions for the new zone. Individuals wishing to make a public comment on this agenda item may do so in person or by Zoom. The public hearing is now open as of 6:04 p.m. Deputy City Clerk, is there anyone who has signed up for public comment that wishes to address the commission?
Thank you, Vice Chair. We did have one request to speak tonight by a Joseph Summerfield. And I'm looking for him in the attendees section. He asked to participate in person at the community center,
Okay,
and they were alerted to that. I don't presently see him. So it could very well be that he chose not to show up. I'm still not seeing him in the attendees section of the meeting.
okay. Now we can give him another minute.
Is Andrea at the community center?
She is there and she's checking right now. She says he's there.
Hmm.
So I'm guessing that she is going to actively make that happen.
Okay,
Okay, it may take a couple of minutes. I did reach out to our team earlier. Fortunately, Andrea is still there working on the council agenda, so we'll get this taken care of. My apologies, commissioners, for the delay. But fortunately, we're quick to respond.
Can you hear us, Deb? Doesn't seem that you guys can hear me. Really quiet?
There you are. We can hear you now.
Okay, now we'll
Okay.
try.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you,
Wait.
Andrea.
okay, wait just a moment then. Okay, so those wishing to provide public testimony, please speak audibly, state your name for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. The deputy city clerk will call on you by name, and then it is your turn to speak. So go ahead.
Joseph Summerfield, you are good to go, and we don't have a clock on the screen for you, but we will be giving you 3 minutes. You can start now.
Hello, my name is Joseph Summerfield. I'm a resident of Mercer Island. I am also a high schooler at Mercer Island High School. And my issue of concern today is regarding the setback policy on the recent, sorry, I'm blanking on the word, agenda for today. It is in my belief that R-84 and MF-2 minimum spacing requirements should be lowered or removed to either 5 feet or 0. The reason this is that most setbacks in the United States for single-family homes are derived almost exclusively from the aesthetics of buildings and the property values attached to them. Lowering setback requirements can help revitalize our community by lowering plot value, but not property value, and allowing for more people to live within the same area, while not necessarily impacting the, as previously mentioned, property value and aesthetic value of said properties. For example, take the Castro neighborhood in San Francisco, where setback requirements have been reduced to 0. This neighborhood has some of the most beautiful streets and houses in the entirety of the city, while keeping an incredibly high property value and quality of life. Because of these benefits, I see that the lowering or removal of minimum setback requirements of R-84 and MF-2 housing to be a necessary amendment to the open space policy of the city of Mercer Island. Thank you. I will abstain the rest of my time.
Thank you very much.
There's nobody else here in person to speak.
Okay. So since there is no further testimony, the public portion of this hearing is now closed as of 6:11 p.m. So now I will welcome Deputy Director Allison Van Gorp and Management Analyst Carson Hornsby to take us through the process here.
Thank you, Chair Murphy. Carson's pulling up the presentation. We've got a few slides to go through just to bring everybody back up to speed on where we're at with this. And we're hoping to get to a recommendation to the City Council tonight on this item. So Carson, I think you need to flip the screens. We see the preview right now.
Okay. Maybe I'll give me one moment. I'm going to stop sharing. I recently set up my docking station, so I haven't run into this problem yet. All right, I think that should be better.
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so like I said, we're just going to do an overview here of kind of where we've been, and then we'll have some time for discussion at the end. This scope of work for this park zone and open space zone was actually included as part of the comprehensive plan scope of work, and that's kind of how it came onto our work plan. And we initially took this up with the Planning Commission last winter, and you may recall there was a lot of public comment and a lot of questions from the commission. Eventually, we paused that effort and then sent this back to the Parks and Recreation Commission for further review. They worked together with the Open Space Conservancy Trust Board and developed a recommendation on the open space zone that was presented to you last May. The Planning Commission provided comments and suggested amendments on that draft and discussed those on May 15th and approved a recommendation for the open space zone at that time. We took that and incorporated the changes to the land use map into the comprehensive plan draft that later went to public hearing in June and is now in the hands of the City Council. And we realized over the summer that we had not done a public hearing on this item, the actual code amendment and zoning map amendment. And that is a required part of the process. So we're bringing it back tonight for the public hearing that you just held and for a final recommendation to the City Council. Is there one more? I think I may have already covered these bullet points. Yep. So all the materials are in your packet. The draft development regulations are Exhibit 1 and the updated zoning map is Exhibit 2. Carson's going to walk us through those at a high level here quickly with a few slides.
All right, thanks, Allison. As Allison mentioned, my name is Carson Hornsby. I'm one of the analysts in the city manager's office that have been helping out with this project. So I'll just give you a quick overview of the zone over these next few slides here. So the open space zone is a proposed new zone that will establish land use regulations for city-owned and managed open space lands to ensure that the land is managed in a way that's consistent with other parks, recreation, and open space documents like the PROS plan, city code, and even master plans and forest management plans and other documents that are specific to open space properties. As Allison mentioned, also, the draft development regulations are provided in Exhibit 1, and these include some amendments that were proposed by planning commissioners back during the meetings in May. The purpose of the open space zone is to preserve, protect, restore, and enhance open space lands, which provide habitat for native plants and animals and ecological services, including stormwater management and carbon sequestration. Open space lands provide access to nature for passive recreation and relaxation, and educational and stewardship opportunities. The designation requirements of the open space zone are pretty straightforward. It requires that an open space property must be owned, leased, or managed by the city of Mercer Island and fulfill the purpose statement that I just read a moment ago. The proposed uses permitted of the open space zone include trails, passive recreational uses, passive recreational amenities, habitat restoration and enhancement, temporary uses compatible with the purpose of the open space zone as authorized by the city manager or designee, wireless communications facilities only as permitted by the citywide sections of code regarding wireless communications facilities, and utilities but only when necessary for public safety or protection of the natural environment. Some of these terms may seem a bit vague, but we do have new definitions defining things like passive recreational uses that we'll cover later in the presentation in a few slides here. So the development standards start off with setbacks. You can see from the setback language that setbacks for adjacent properties that are residential or multifamily are emphasized at 20 feet, whereas public properties and business or other public properties have a setback of 0. And we have exemptions included as fences, gates, culverts, trails, landscaping, and furnishings. Restrooms are permitted only on properties that are larger than 100 acres, and they're limited to 300 square feet in area. This only affects Pioneer Park, as that is our only open space land that is over 100 acres. Development standards for signs and kiosks are that they're governed by the citywide sign code with a few caveats. Interior signs are limited to 3 square feet, and entrance signs are limited to 10 square feet of surface area. Exterior lighted signs are prohibited, and natural colors are required unless it's necessary, unless the reasoning is necessary for public health, safety, or maintenance. Kiosks are limited to 15 square feet of surface area and 10 feet in height, unless the kiosk is located on an open space land larger than 100 acres, where they will be regulated or limited to 22 square feet in surface area and 10 feet in height. Again, this only affects Pioneer Park and some of the larger kiosks that we have on that open space land. Trail standards are also regulated pretty straightforward. They're limited to 8 feet in width. So the definitions that I mentioned earlier in the presentation are on screen now. I'll avoid reading these all the way through, but just go over the definitions that we have. So we have kiosk, natural colors, open space lands, passive recreational amenities, passive recreational uses, temporary structures, uses, and activities, and trail. As part of this code amendment, we also need to update the zoning map that is found in Appendix D of Title 19 of the Mercer Island City Code. You can see the new proposed zoning map at the image on the right side hand of the screen here, and this is what will be proposed to be to replace the current zoning map in the Mercer Island City Code. And I think I'll turn it back to Allison to just talk about some next steps and then open it up for discussion and other questions.
All right, so after tonight's meeting, or I guess during tonight's meeting, I should say, you'll have the chance to discuss the draft and then provide any final amendments if you'd like. And we're looking for you to approve a recommendation to the city council tonight regarding these amendments. And then, assuming that does go forward tonight, this will go to the city council in the next month or two for their final review. And it'll be adopted with an effective date that is the same as the periodic date to the comprehensive plan, so that the changes made in the comp plan are consistent with the development regulations.
Okay. Thank you, Allison. Thank you,
Yeah.
Carson. Commissioners,
Thank you.
are there any questions at this point? Victor?
So tonight we heard testimony from the public on setbacks. What exactly was that testimony referring to? You had a slide on setbacks. Was that the reference?
I believe so. You know, the draft code does require setbacks from certain zones, from the residential zones of 20 feet for any, you know, larger structures. As you can see on the slide here, things like fences, gates, culverts, trails, and furnishings are exempt from those setbacks.
So
And the open space zone isn't really expected or intended to have a lot of development. So I think it's unlikely that this 20-foot setback will have much of an effect on anything going forward.
That was going to be my question, is what exactly is being set back here? Because I don't, aside from, I think we said kiosks.
Yeah, I was going to say a kiosk or a bathroom would really be the only things. And bathrooms are only allowed on larger properties.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think the speaker was thinking that the setbacks were the opposite way. In other words, that they were affecting structures on the other side of the line, as it were. And I think, Victor, you brought out well that this does not affect that. This is structures built in the open space.
Correct.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that we acknowledged the testimony and made sure that it was considered, but I don't see anything that would be affected. So
yeah, I agree. Adam.
I've got a quick question on part Bravo 2, the measurement of those setbacks. It's slightly ambiguous, and I'm wondering if we could get some insight from the discussions at the the open space guys. Would it be possible to put that up? It would be the top of page 2 on our packet of Exhibit 1, where I could read it too.
I can work on pulling that up.
Okay.
I don't have it available right this
Okay,
second.
while Carson's working it, I'll read it. It says setbacks are measured from the adjacent property line or the edge of adjacent public rights of way. But there's no guidance as to which to choose if they're both present. I'm wondering, maybe we should put something there clarifying like whichever is more restrictive, perhaps. Just a thought, because right there it's I read that as you could do either. And if that, so yeah. That's my only substantive comment on.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Carson, see if you remember too, that there was some discussion around this because I think certain properties may have had a wider right of way. You know, that maybe it was being used for parking or had vegetation, and so, you know, many times the right of way is fairly narrow, like 5 to 10 feet, but in some places in Mercer Island, it's quite a bit wider.
That's similar to my recollection of the conversations on that as well.
Victor,
I'm happy to give Kate the floor since I've already talked, and you can come back to me.
Kate,
I'm just wondering, reflecting on what the deputy director was saying, given that a right of way might be quite large for a variety of reasons, is making this more restrictive, could that be problematic to the city if they're trying to cite a feature in the future? I mean, do we want to leave it intentionally vague so that the city can place, you know, a feature that might need a utility associated with it or something, so they have that flexibility? I just don't think the city wants to restrict itself for citing on a limited land if there's a very large right of way.
yeah.
Because sometimes you're like adding a bunch of different types of rights of way together, and we've run into that on lots of projects that I've worked on, that you start stacking these things and it's like, wow, that's like 300 feet. You can't actually build the thing that the community wanted us to build here.
I think the key word there is adjacent, but I'll let the city manager weigh in on this.
Hi, good evening. I just came off the soccer field and I'm soaking wet, so apologies. For the record, Jesse Bond, your city manager. Carson, could you scroll up? Do we have the list of setbacks on the, there we go. Okay, and then could we get the screen so we've got B and C on there? There we go. I was just listening to the conversation and I'm not entirely sure I understand the issue. I think number 2 was written specifically in terms of rights of way to identify the edge, not the center. Sometimes we measure setbacks from the center of a road versus the edge. So we went to the edge, and that is in there specifically. Well, it applies to many of our open space properties, but like Pioneer Park, the property line runs right up to the edge of the right of way. So I'm not, if the setback, if we're adjacent to a property other than a right of way, we're measuring from, you know, the property line. If we're next to a road, we're measuring from the road. And if I'm misunderstanding the question, I'm not sure how to make this more or less restrictive. Maybe I misunderstand what the issue might be here.
Yeah, I don't think you want to make it more or less restrictive because you're dealing with 2 separate issues of adjacency. One is a public right of way, one is a adjacent property line that's not public. And so those are 2 different situations. And I don't think there's a case in which you would be stacking those setbacks in any case.
That's correct, Vice Chair Murphy.
Yeah, Victor.
So after listening to the conversation a little bit and thinking about this, we haven't been able to identify what's being set back. And so I'm gonna ask, why do we need a setback section? If we need to specify how far that restroom is set back, my understanding it's only one open space that this applies to. Just set back the restroom and remove the setback section.
It is one restroom. I guess I'm gonna have to pull up the whole code now because I can't just work off this one section.
it feels like a really complicated and convoluted way to specify that one restroom.
Well,
I believe it also applies to kiosks or other
yeah.
structures.
Yeah. I would be careful about inverting the language to just address the restroom setback for that very reason that there may be something else that that we didn't anticipate. Sorry, I didn't have this document up. If I can ask again, I'm still not understanding. Victor, I took your point about why not be more specific, but was there an original concern that I just misunderstood?
I think the original question was, what would the setbacks apply to? And I
Okay.
think my answer to that was restrooms and kiosks and their types of structures that might fit
Okay.
under, a passive recreational amenity, for example.
Yeah. All right, so under our uses permitted, trails, passive recreational uses, recreational amenities, habitat restoration, temporary uses, wireless communication facilities and utilities, setbacks, 0-20. Fences, gates, culverts, trails, landscaping, and furnishings are exempt. So as of right now, it would be your restrooms and your signs. Yeah.
This might also relate to temporary structures.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, and we had quite a discussion about temporary structures at the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. And by the way, the big lamp that I use in my office is broken, so I look like I'm sitting in the dark because I am. Temporary in open space areas, the type of temporary uses we have are really project related, where we'll have restoration groups come in for, sometimes a weekend, sometimes multiple weeks, or sometimes several months, and they bring in temporary structures, tents and storage units and things like that. And they mobilize and they demobilize, just like with construction projects. So that would be the other thing that would have to be set back then. You're correct, Carson.
Kate, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just real quickly, is this included, just to kind of clarify my earlier statement, so this is included, I'm assuming, if you have, let's say you have a property like this, and then you have an overlapping right-of-way, and you've got the open space over here, you're saying that you're not going to preclude doing something in the public right-of-way because you can't, because it's a public right-of-way. There's a right, often there are public rights of way on private property. So while it's owned by the property owner, the city has rights to do things within the right of way. So the reason the statement is there is to acknowledge that. Isn't that the purpose of the statement? That sometimes you're gonna have a right of way within a private property, and that's the setback line. It might be within the private property edge.
No.
The edge of the parcel.
If you have.
Are you saying
right
that
of way,
it's
that's public property. That's not the private property.
right of way can be an easement? Like the street, like your street tree areas, your planting strips, those are owned by the homeowner in some cases, but the city has a right to plant trees and manage utilities in that right of way. but the homeowner actually owns to the curb in many cases. So I think I better understand what Commissioner Rigub was saying. Was to be more restrictive, you would say, you know, it needs to start at the setback needs to start at the property line. The way it's written right now, it's saying that it can be within the property line if there's a public right of way that is within the property.
I wonder if I'm not sure how we got this one so twisted up. I wonder if the change that needs to be made is to strike both of the words adjacent. Setbacks are measured from the property line or the edge of public rights of way. Is the word adjacent throwing us? I mean, it's literally just to say where the open space property meets either a private property or a public right of way. That is the point at which the setback is measured.
I don't think it's throwing anyone. I think we just kind of misunderstood at first. And I think Commissioner Rigab was making a point that he wanted to be more protective of the property owner's land, if I understand correctly. And my thinking was that I don't know that we can do that because some of those rights of way might have stipulations that this code wouldn't trump.
You know, what was interesting, just for context, we went out and looked at the open space properties that we currently own to see what was sitting on the property lines. And in many cases, the trails are running right on the property lines. And that's actually by design, to protect the natural areas. That's why trails ended up being exempted. The recommendation for 0 feet setback was, you know, specific only to a handful of zone, public institution, town center, business zones, commercial office, CO or B. And then the 20-foot setback applies to all the residential zones.
Is there a definition of public rights of way?
I would assume so. I'd have to ask
look.
Allison.
Yeah, I can look.
My understanding is that's managed at the state level in part. There's RCW 7936-440. Right of way for public roads, any county or city or agency desiring to establish, blah, 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 blah. So it's in part managed at the state level, not the city level. That's RCW 7936-440.
It's also defined in our code. A right of way is land acquired by reservation, dedication, prescription, or condemnation, and intended to be used by a road, sidewalk, utility line, or other similar public use.
Adam, did you have a thought to add?
Yeah, maybe it's something that we can just make a note for to have, like, you know, legal or the city council aware of it when we move. I think the question I had is kind of if we and I don't want to get stuck on this point. I think where I was coming from on this is if you zoom in on Ellis Pond, open space, you see on the north side, it looks like open space. It appears that it runs down the center of the road. So, you know, in that case, as written, any, I hope we're not developing in Ellis Pond, but anything in there, you could build it 20 feet from the center of the road, even though that road may protrude, 10 feet into the open space of Ellis Pond. So I guess that's that's one where it's like, do we want to make sure it's further into the open space area? That's where I'm coming from.
That one is the poster child of needing a whole series of boundary line adjustments because of the way it's gridded out.
As I said, I don't want to get stuck on this. It's unclear to me, and usually unclear gets, the longer it's unclear, the more trouble it causes later down the road. So if we can, I'm happy to just, hey, flag this. I'm not going to try to make a motion or anything on it.
The so Ellis Pond is a good example. It was those, the underlying parcel map is it's showing this sort of crosshatch of boundary lines. I think when we have staff capacity to do so, we need to go and fix that and make it one contiguous open space. And there we go. Allison might have it. There you go. Interestingly, there's nothing we could develop there anyway because of its underlying restrictions, but your point is well taken, that with something like this, it makes the setback conversation a little confusing.
Kate, did you have further comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a motion to move the move the item forward to council as written.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Adam?
I've got 3 small typos on the diagram. I would like to bring attention to. Should I mention?
Sure.
Okay. Gallagher Hill open space. It appears there's an errant CO beneath it on the right-hand side. I'm assuming we want to remove that.
Yep, that's a good catch.
And then South End Fire Station, directly east of the planned business zone, that's labeled PII, should be PI. And last one on the northwest part, right under MF2L, there's a call out for Slater, and I'm assuming that's left out from removing of like park or beach or road end names. So I guess I would suggest that get removed.
You have good eyes. Thank you.
And so, yeah, those, should I make a motion on those or?
You're welcome
Like
to.
amended?
I do think they're basically Scrivener's errors that we can clean up
Okay.
without a motion as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can get those fixed. Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
I also see a label for First Hill Park on there too.
Any further discussion? I believe we're ready for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, excuse me.
What a
Mr. Chair.
promotion. What a
Wow.
promotion.
That's impressive.
Okay, Vice Chair Murphy,
Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Rashiz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
Commissioner Regum,
Aye.
and that's it. It's only 4 of you attending tonight.
Motion passes. Now we move on to other business. Is there a deputy director report?
Just a very brief one. Our next meeting in October, I don't have the date in front of me. Let me check that really quick. October 23rd. We'll be focusing on the docket, the annual docket. We're now open for docket requests through October 1st. And then we'll be preparing that for Planning Commission review in October. Your recommendation then will go to the City Council for their review, I believe, in November. And of course, we need to finalize the docket before the end of the year. Yeah, so we've been doing all of the public noticing and promotion for the docket since August, and already gotten some inquiries about that. I don't know if anyone has questions about the docket process, but just wanted to make sure that was all on all of your radars.
What's the due date for that? If
It's October 1st.
October 1st. So anyone, including the commission?
Correct.
There was some confusion about that last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the code allows the commission to suggest code amendments at any time throughout the year if there's a majority of the commission supporting that. But we do try to, round up everything that folks know about it in advance at this time of year, just so that we can work it into our work plan and budget process.
Okay. If there are any planned absences for future meetings, please contact Chair Battazzo and Allison. Let them know. The next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 23rd at 6 p.m. And there being no other business to come before the Planning Commission, the time is now 6:47 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned. As a reminder, please stay seated until the city staff has terminated the broadcast. Good evening and thank you for joining us.